right. Um, so we are looking for those deals for those right properties in the emerging markets, and we need to know the key factors that an investor typically considers when evaluating multifamily property. How can the agent assist them in making informed decisions?
Yeah, so the main things that we look at is one is cap rate, cash on cash return, and then yield of the property or IRR, which is basically the appreciation over time. So those are and then some investors also like to look at equity multiple, right? So if I invest $1 million, I know how much time it will take for me to double my money, for example, right? So, so those are some of the metrics, cash on cash return, yield or IRR, and equity multiple, along with cap rate. Those are the four key metrics that most investors look at. So we kind of find out what's more important for you. Like a value add investor may not care about cap rate. They may care more about the IRR or the yield of the property, right? A stabilized property investor is going to care about cap rate and cash on cash return. So based on the type of investor, we're going to figure out, what is their decision criteria. If I can find you a property that's going to be giving you 8% cash on cash return, is that a good deal for you? Then our job is to go find them a property that's 8% cash cap rate. Somebody might say, oh, I need an IRR or a yield of 15%. So our job is to go find them a property that's going to give them a projected, there's no guarantees, like a projected return of 15% based on some value add component, based on some appreciation and stuff like that. So there are different ways we can find properties. A lot of the time we find that some of the properties are operated poorly. Right? They have not kept up with the property as far as upgrades, and they have not raised the rents in like 5-10 years because they don't even know what the current market rents are. Those are all great opportunities for somebody who's willing to do that work, and then they can get a higher return. Right? So again, you go back to the each individual investor or buyer and find out what's important to them, and then our job is to find properties that matches what they're looking for.
Right? So as a new agent, I can say, hey, if this agent is looking for value add properties or for stabilized properties, I can make the relationship to a financial formula or a financial aspect that allows me to understand better that property.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So there is a process that we go through, what we call underwriting. So we look at first we look at the rent delta, right? What is the current rent at the property and what is the market rent, right? So in a value add scenario, you want to see, some difference between the current rent and the market rent, right? That is the number one thing you look at. Then you look at their financials and see how they're operating the property. Is there something that we can create some efficiencies? Maybe some of the expenses are too much. Can we reduce some expenses? Then we look at other income opportunities. Can we add car parking? Can we add, laundry service and things like that to generate more income at the property? Those are all things that we typically look for in order to bring more value to a property. And then the more value you can create at the property, you can sell it at a higher price and get a higher return for your money.
Right. So the agent knows that, and then the agent with the client puts the deal on a contract. How do you approach the due diligence process on a multifamily property and understanding what is the financial goals of that property?
Yeah, so the number one is obviously financials because we have to make sure the numbers work, right? So we typically look at financial, legal, operational, and also the property itself, right? So those are the four big buckets. The financials is looking at the numbers, making sure that if we do certain things to the property or if we implement our renovation plan and our operations plan, we can get a higher return on the property. The legal is looking at any title issues or any restricted covenants or any kind of zoning issues and stuff like that. Making sure that everything is clear there. Operational is how do we operate the property once we buy it, right? Once we buying a multifamily property, it is buying a business. How are you going to operate this? Who's going to manage it? Who's going to lease it? Who are the contractors we would use? So we had to look at all that stuff, and then obviously the physical stuff. The physical would be looking at the exterior of the building, the interior of the building, the structure of the building, and then all the different systems like HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and inspecting all those components to make sure that there's no big issues with the property. So that is one way we approach it, is to say these are the different things that we need to do. I mean, those are things that typically you can do some of the basic due diligence while you're looking at the property, but a lot of this happens after the property is under contract, while you are in the due diligence period.
Is the same inspection process in residential. I hire a property inspector. It is the same process in multifamily?
Yes, I mean, not every inspector is set up to inspect a multifamily property. Typically, a multifamily inspector will also bring in different vendors with them. So when they come to inspect the units, they will probably have a roofer looking at the roof. They'll probably have a plumber looking at the plumbing system. They'll probably have an electrician looking at the electrical issues. So they usually, it's not a one-person inspection. Typically, I mean, if it's a smaller property, it could be a one-person inspection. But typically on a bigger multifamily property, it's a team of people who come and inspect the property together. And a lot of the times, you may also have your property manager, if you already have selected one, come with you. So they'll be walking the interior of the units, looking for issues inside, right? To see, how the unit is kept, and they'll be also making a list of upgrades that they need to do, whether they need to change the appliances or change the carpet or whatever else upgrades you're planning to do to the property. So they'll make a list of everything that needs to be done as part of that, property, or what we call the unit walkthrough. Every unit is inspected, interior and exterior, but it's usually a team effort to do and then there is also somebody doing the audit of the lease, because there is, in a multifamily property, there's a bunch of leases. So somebody needs to audit the leases, make sure the paperwork is all good and they are compliant with all the local laws or state laws. And so there is a lease audit also that happens. So there is a little bit more involved in a multifamily due diligence. So lease audit, financial audit, in property inspection, unit walkthroughs. And the good thing is that, your property managers can help you coordinate it. And also your inspector will also coordinate with other vendors that can do specific inspections at the property as well.